Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have with us Mr. Ravi Manoram. Sir, I welcome you on the behalf of Lingyas Lalita Devi Institute of Management and Sciences.
Thank you.
Ravi Manoram is a trainer with time. He is an alumnus of Delhi College of Engineering, New Delhi, and Faculty of Management Studies, FMS, Delhi University, and also authored a book named When the Road Beckons. Sir, we are so glad to have you with us today. I request you to share your experience with us.
It's such an important skill. Before I begin, many a time there are such important life skills we tend to ignore, like public speaking, interpersonal communications, it's writing, reading as a skill, in fact, right? Because this is a very important skill that today's generation is kind of losing out, given the advent of social media and so many other distractions. I mean, we were lucky during our, childhood days that we did not have these many distractions as we have today, right? And to a certain extent, people, they tend to forego focusing on these skills because they might not give you results immediately. That is, if you're talking about getting a job, or sitting for an interview, or if you're talking about getting into higher education or something like that, right? And but then later on in life, you do realize that if you do not have the capacity to address a crowd, you can never be a leader, right? And what separates a leader from managers or any other person out there, whether you're talking about leadership, and so there are politicians, there are leaders, there are people who do something, and then there are leaders out there. Leaders are the people who give vision, who give mission, who can guide the masses, right? And as such, public speaking becomes a very important life skills, right? And as for people like you who are doing journalism right now, right, it becomes all the more important. And I think it's the public speaking at the end of the day is going to separate the wheat from the chaff, separate the cream from the milk, right? So that's what public speaking is all about, right? Now, J.D. Sainfield had once said, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. People are okay with dying. They can easily commit suicide. Especially the people who commit suicide. But then you ask them to go on a stage and address a crowd. People would kind of be frightened about that more. This means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. That is, you would prefer to be dead rather than to address the crowd, and you're giving out some fine points about the person who's lying in the casket. So we're talking about the funeral scenarios out there, where they give you, where somebody a few people, they speak out the eulogy, right? Not to make fun of society and everything. I know it's a very depressive situation, but I personally feel it's a sign of weakness as well, and everybody should fight against it. Anyway, so the point here is, what I'm trying to say is, public speaking happens to frighten everybody, right? And to a certain extent, people start believing that one has to be born with the quality of public speaking, right? And we all know in life, right, whether you're talking about looks, whether you're talking about any particular skill, right, you don't have to be an Abhimanyu to succeed in the world. Even Abhimanyu failed at the end of the day, right? He couldn't clear the seventh trap in the Mahabharata, right? So whatever you learn on this planet, and then that's how you kind of progress. It's all about finding what you're good at and what you're not good at. And public speaking is something that everybody can become good at, as long as if you try. So why do we hate public speaking? For one simple reason is lack of positive experience, right? Lack of positive experience. To share one of my experiences when I was in the first year of my college, and that time we did not have any literary society or any debating club or something like that, because it was an engineering college. All that people wanted to do was get into engineering, get a job, and get out of the college. So in order to develop this skill, I had to go down to the DU campus and participate in multiple debate competitions in multiple debate competitions during the fest time, and it was one such incident. I walked into Miranda House. Luckily, at that time, DC, which is DTU now, was part of Delhi University, so I had the I-card of Delhi University at that time, right? And then they allowed me to participate in the debate competition in Miranda House, and I went on the stage, and there's this huge crowd of girls sitting in front of me. Right, I'm this young college from and from this engineering college where there like very few girls at that time used to be there in engineering, and suddenly you have this whole crowd of girls sitting in front of you. I start to speak, right, and then I forget what I'm speaking. I look down on the script that I have in front of me, right? I don't know what I see on the script, and I start from somewhere else. I then realize that okay, I've forgotten. I've actually misplaced what I'm actually trying to say right now, and I've actually started from a wrong place. And then I went back, right, and then again looking at the script as to what I actually wanted to say, and then I landed up at the wrong place again, and again I started on a wrong note, and I don't know what I actually ended up saying for the next 4 minutes. God knows that, right? To such an extent, if you have been in a debate competition, there's a rebuttal round after somebody speaks, right? So in the rebuttal round, where the person from the crowd gets up and says, can you even, briefly summarize what did you actually say, because we could not understand anything, and the entire crowd went into laughter. While the first impression was okay, this guy is from DTU, and everybody was like, okay, wow. So suddenly that wow went to what? So that was this ill-fated experience that I had, a very negative experience, but again, it did not break me down. I sat through the entire debate competition. There was these two students from Stephen's history honors, right? They were fantastic speakers. They spoke very well, right? When they came down, and after everything was over, I went to them, I asked them for tips, I asked them for help, right? That's what I inculcated in myself. And then by the end of the third year, I was amongst the top 10 speakers at Crossroads, SRCC's debating competition. And when you're talking about Crossroads, even law colleges from all across the country, they kind of participate, in that particular competitions, including IIT and everyone, right? And I was there among the top 10 speakers, and I think that was a grand moment for me, right? So, it's all about practice, and it's all about moving forward and kind of developing those skills within you, right? We all hate to be center of attention, because when you're at the center of attention, you become very conscious about what you say, not only about what you say, but also about your behavior, how you look. You're very cautious about whether you don't make a mistake and everything, right? It's very easy to be nobody, because a nobody can slip into any skin and can happily be roam around freely. But the moment you become a center of attention, right, it's a huge burden, and sometimes we tend to hate that. So how you would develop yourself, you have to develop yourself to kind of accept the attention that you are kind of getting, and for that you need to develop your self-attention, and that is very important, right? When you are speaking in public, right, even if you're standing on the stage speaking like a TEDx speaker, you do feel isolated, because everybody is gazing at you. There's nobody who's going to support. Literally, nobody is going to support you, right? And then you are going to be completely isolated, right? And this is a fear that kind of frightens everybody, right? And you would always be conscious about the audience judging you, right? And nobody likes to judge. That includes I, and that includes me as well. And we all fear failure, right? And because of all of these factors, kind of frightens us about public speaking, and that adds to this public speaking anxiety that we have within us, right? So when you're talking about public speaking anxieties, there can be 4 types. The pre-preparation anxiety. You can't even get started, because you have to write a script, you need to practice, and all of these things, they become really very tough, right? Then you have this preparation anxiety, that is during the research and preparation. The material that you are preparing for is right or wrong. So all of these problems, they add to the anxiety. And then you have this pre-performance anxiety 24 hours before a presentation actually takes place, because the one day before the presentation you are like all panicking, and you don't know how you're going to perform in front of the people. And then of course you have this performance anxiety during the actual presentation. So all of these These are the 4 kinds of anxiety that we all tend to suffer from, right? We tend to remember poignant feelings and emotions more than everyday ones. Poignant means emotions which are deeply moving. Every day we feel something or the other. We smile, we laugh, but then that's kind of passes off, right? Passes on. And then when you're talking about poignant or deeply moving, like if you're hurt, if you're extremely happy, these are the kind of emotions that kind of sticks with us, right? And then the next question that you should be asking yourself is, how many times have you attempted public speaking, right? And therefore, when you talk about attempting public speaking, you might have not spoken a lot in public, and therefore you don't have any experience. And having no experience, people, they tend to associate this with negative experience. Or maybe you have spoken in public a couple of times and you've had a negative experience, and these couple of times of negative experience, you have kind of generalize it as a lifelong kind of an experience, and you've decided that you're never going to attempt public speaking, and that again is a very wrong way to kind of progress, right? So reflect on these experiences, right? How did you prepare for each of these occasions, right? Focus and see the kind of mistakes that you have done, and how can you outdo your previous performance. Even if you think about that, that's more than enough, right? So in most cases, it's not positive experience we are lacking. It's actually just the experience we are lacking. That is, we have not got onto the stage enough to speak. And as a matter of fact, when the first time I failed in my public speaking experience at Miranda House, after that first debacle, I think I must have participated in 20-30 odd opportunities. I took all of those opportunities to participate in debate competitions. I started to roam around each and every college, get into the debate competitions, and participate there, right? So that's something I started to do, and that kind of added to my experience, and from that experience I started to learn a lot, right? So that's the thing. So everyone is staring at you, when you're at the center of attention. Why? For the simple reason that because they believe that you are the expert on the content that you are delivering, right? Nobody's interested in anybody's qualification or anything. But when you are at the center of attention, you would be assumed to be the expert, right? And in these scenarios, you have to practice being comfortable and being being confident as well. And this comfort is going to be that's going to come from confidence, right? And when you lose confidence, what happens is you start looking at the ceiling, you start looking at some windows or here and there, something else, but you except for the people, right? Because you're very afraid to look into the eyes of the people, and that kind of adds to the frustration of the audience as well. So please remember that eye contact is a two-way street, and therefore it is important that you also look into the eyes of the public when you are speaking. In that case, you can hypnotize them even better, and you can kind of captivate them even more, right? Now, this feeling of isolation, when you talk about that, what you really need to ask yourself is, are you really alone? Because you're not alone. That's like maybe hundreds of people around you. Like in this room right now, there are like 30 or 35 people around me right now, right? So in this part of the presentation, right? And most importantly, you are in total control of your presentation. Like right now, I am, right? So basically, you are leading, a flock of sheep out there. You are the shepherd, right? And therefore, there is no need to be frightened about anything, right? So if possible, you can actually add to the audience engagement. That would, remove this feeling of,
I request to all the participants, please mute your mic.
कौन है ये शिनचैन? इस एज में शिनचैन कौन देखता है? I would have kind of expected, you people would watch romantic movies or, thrillers or action movies or something like that. Shinchan, seriously? I mean, chalo yaar, theek hai, matlab, so now this is a new experience for me as well about the new generation, that this generation loves Shinchan.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. पूरन सर, आपको अगर कोई ऐसा पार्टिसिपेंट लगे तो प्लीज इमीडिएटली रिमूव कर दीजिए उसको.
It's fine. I was just adding to the sarcasm so that the person doesn't feel that. Anyway, it's okay. Anyway, if possible, add to the audience engagement. That is one thing which kind of lacks in this digital presentation that you have, because I don't get to see the people, look into your eyes, and ask you questions in that case. But then even in such cases, you can add to audience's engagement. For example, let's say if I have this topic of feeling of isolation, so what is your viewpoint, so I can get the feedback from the people. Unfortunately today I don't have much time given to me, and so I don't have the freedom to go about doing that right now. Okay, so when you're being judged, okay, so just accept it. You are going to be judged. You're walking on the street, you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged by your parents, you're going to be judged by your teachers, you're going to be judged by your friends, you're just going to be judged by your peer group. You're going to be judged by everyone in this world. So what's the big deal about it, right? So the moment you stop making a big deal about being judged, you would be confident, you would be kind of comfortable with this idea that people are going to judge you, right? So how do you judge people initially, right? Now that is a question kind of you should think about. Anyone who can give me some inputs in that? How do you go about judging people? Anyone? How does anyone go about judging anyone else? कैसे कोई judge करता है किसी और को? Anyone from the audience?
Sir?
Yeah, please speak your name out, because in Google I don't get to see the face of the name of the speaker.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Poo Sharma, and sir, I don't know about others, but the things that I notice in a person while judging him or her is the language, dressing sense, and his behavior. These are the three major things that I notice.
Behavior. That's perfect. That's the very feminine way of where people kind of judge, which is perfectly correct, right? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? How do you judge people? Of course, you're going to talk about appearance, right? First of all, you're going to talk about behavior, right? And what was the first time that you said? What was the first point that you said? The language that you're going to speak, right? So at least two factors are in your control. You can stand before an audience well dressed. You can exhibit good manners. When you come on the stage, wish the audience, address them, talk to them nicely, be friends with them, right? Be very friendly towards them, right? And then of course you might have actually practiced your language part as much as possible. There can be some regional pulls and all when you're kind of speaking, which is completely fine. You should be ignoring that. You should ignore all the factors that are beyond your control, or it's going to take a very long time to actually overcome any sort of those weaknesses, right? And that is completely fine. Imagine when this Firangs, when they speak in Hindi, how stupid do they sound? As compared to that, we Indians actually speak way better English than if any of these people, they might actually end up speaking a foreign language, right? So we should actually feel proud about that, right? And if you're going to address in your native language, those में तो कोई problem ही नहीं है, whether it's going to be Hindi or Punjabi or any other language for you, for that matter, right? So as long as you control them, that's fine. Then after that, the only thing that you need to practice on is, or you need to take control of, is the content that you're going to deliver, and how you are going to deliver. That is the delivery and the content. These are the two things that you need to actually kind of work. So work backwards, kind of think as to how audience would be kind of going to judge you, and then accordingly prepare yourself accordingly. Okay, so that's one thing that you should do, right? You will know how you are perceived very quickly, right? And confidence is key, and knowledge is power. So on whatever topic that you're going to speak, you really need to have a very good knowledge on that. So knowledge is power in this case, right? So what impression do you leave in 30 seconds? Perceived race, ethnicity, accent, dialect, right? Your style of dress, right? Your body language, right? And the more mature you become, you tend to have more parameters on which you are going to judge an individual. But these are the four main like aspects on which you're going to judge somebody, especially in the first 30 seconds. After that, you might actually just start thinking about anything more, right? So ये चीज है. Then you would also be judging people on the basis of the relative level of intelligence, their education, and other physical traits like height, weight, intelligence, attractiveness. That's in the first 30 seconds. But after that first 30 seconds is over, right, you would be judged on your content and delivery. You would be judged on your content and delivery, right? So even if you fail initially, a healthy fear of failure is also important, right? So having a little bit of fear is important as well, because when you fear failure, you will ensure that you're going to do, you're going to do the homework properly. That is, you're going to prepare everything very well, right? And audiences want to be entertained or informed. No one asks to be bored. So just take care of these factors and you would do well as far as public speaking is concerned. So audience wants you to be successful in your goals. So in a way, right, what you should believe in yourself is that when you're going on a stage, right, while you're going to be judged, while you're going to be isolated, but the good thing here is the audience which is sitting there, wants you to succeed, because when you succeed as a speaker, when you deliver good content, that has a fantastic impact on the audience as well, and they get to have some takeaways from your speech, something they might actually learn from, something they might inculcate in their personality, or some kind of a they might have a very good entertainment. So all of these factors, they kind of go into your favor, right? And if you look at all these stand-up comedians, they all don't look like Shah Rukh Khan, but the point is, it's all about content and delivery, right? If you have fantastic content and delivery, you've become a fantastic comedian, right? And you can become a fantastic speaker as well, right? So ye cheez hai. So what is the worst that can happen, right? Just be prepared for that. It's always said, be prepared for the worst, right? And if you're prepared for the worst, then it's perfectly fine. And if you are able to figure that out, now all you need to do is prepare enough so that you can prevent the worst that can actually happen, right? So that's the thing. And list everything that you can control and plan to manage it. Okay? For example, these kind of musical Shinchan experience that we just had, this is part and parcel of the expectation that I have, and it did not really kind of worry me. I take it as part and parcel of my fun. It's fun part as well. It's just that on Google Meet you do not have a lot of control factors like GoToMeeting or Zoom for that matter. You can immediately kind of mute anyone, and you can easily find somebody who's being a disturbing element, and you can kind of throw them out. Apart from that, others, we all kind of expect that these things would happen on a digital platform. So Summers White had said 90% of how well the talk will go is determined before the speaker steps on the platform. So your preparation, before you stand on the platform, right, is more important than during that 5 minutes or 10 minutes of speech that you are going to give, right? So preparation is very, 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 very important, right? So how can I become a better speaker? How can you become a better speaker? Prepare the right way. Start by answering these questions. What is the specific purpose of your speech, right? Now, the point is, any kind of speaking is a sales process, and sales is not about telling good aspects about the product or yourself or your idea. Sales is all about understanding customer needs, and then once you've understood the customer needs, you can then deliver what the customer wants, or you can customize your speech and deliver what the customer wants, right? For example, in this case, I kind of admire Amir Khan a lot, right? Now, if you look at Amir Khan's movies, but it was just some mistakes actually. I personally believe he did not really mean he and his wife, they're quite frightened to be in India. That's his free marketing gimmick. What he does is, whenever there's any movies, is going to be released, he associates with some current factor that's being overplayed in the country, and he associates the movie with those current factors. He'll give out some controversial statement, or he'll give out some statement or the other. It catches the limelight, and his movie gets promoted. So I think he was just trying to promote his movie. That was also selfish, but forgive कर सकते हैं इसको. Otherwise, you look at his movies, it's fantastic, right? Now, if you look at Three Idiots, क्या fantastic message that दिया है ना कि go for excellence, that is more important, right? And now, if that message, if somebody gives out in a very plain manner, right, the audience might not like it at all. Okay, but then the way he kind of he and Rajkumar Hirani, the director of the movie, they bring out that message. It kind of inspires the entire crowd, and the movie becomes a super duper hit, right? Otherwise, all the other movies which have a very strong purpose, they have a very strong story, they have a very strong message for the audience, but the delivery part is missing. Most of these movies have actually bombed, right, on the silver screen, and that is something we are very familiar about, right? So what is the specific purpose of your speech? That is something you need to understand. What is your topic? Who is your audience? Understand your audience very well, right? And then what are the time constraints? In how many minutes you need to deliver that? Within 10 minutes, within 5 minutes, or you have half an hour, you have 1 hour, you have 2 hours. For how long is the audience willing to sit there? So you need to understand this time constraints. Will you be using visual aids? That is something, again, you need to figure out, right? And once you have figured out all of these things, you can then customize your speech according to the liking of the audience, or the liking that you believe that your audience would have. You may not do it perfectly for the first time, but slowly and gradually, as you practice more and more, you would be able to improve upon this, right? So when you're talking about preparing for your speech, start with the structure: formal outline, speaker outline, smaller, smaller and smaller. The smaller you keep that, that's preferable. Topic selection: how do you choose on what topic that you want, right? Even if the topic is important, is that topic important for the current audience right now, right? For example, if I talk about how you can maintain your health by avoiding eating oily food, but that is a topic that would not interest you because you guys are young. But if there is a crowd that is 40 plus out there, for those people that topic kind of becomes very important. Mapping technique is like when you're traveling from one place to another, all the intermediate places are interconnected. So when you are speaking, right, so it has to be mapped properly. That is, everything should be interconnected, which finally leads to the conclusion, a conclusion that the audience can take home, right? So don't throw out your notes, prime ground for the main points and supporting material. So kind of build on them. And are there any topics, subject matter to avoid? Use the IBI, interesting but irrelevant route, right? Something sounds interesting, right? But if it is irrelevant to the audience, try and avoid those things, right? So that is how you should go about preparing your speech. Take it up. What can be the other important factors? The audience demographics, the age, the education level, the sex, the gender of the audience, right? Then education and what education or education level they have, age. Okay, we've covered that as well, right? So all of these factors, if they're earning or not, and there are many other, the region also then becomes an important thing, right? So all of these factors, they go on to define the demographics of the audience that you're kind of talking about, right? It's just like marketing, segmentation, targeting and positioning, right? Understand the size of the audience, how big of an audience that you're going to address, right? And the amount of the presentation space that you have. Do you have the entire stage, or it's a confined room that in which you're going to address 4 or 5 people? In that case, paying individual attention is very important. You need to kind of look into the eyes of each of the person. But let's say if like 50 or 100 or 1,000 people are sitting in front of you, in that case you need not look into the eyes of everybody, which is kind of not even possible for that matter. So your presentation space is very important, right? You also need to know the audience's current knowledge of the topic, right? And what value you would be able to add to that. You need to understand the diversity, right? In terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of race, in terms of knowledge, in terms of education. So what is the diversity of the crowd that is kind of going to sit there? Right now, I know that I'm lucky right now that I'm addressing a college crowd from I'm addressing a college crowd. but later on it could be a very different scenario. Like, you know, when a politician is addressing in front of the minister, you know, the audience is very diverse, you know, from uneducated, you know, poorer people of the society, वो भी होते हैं, to the finest educated people of the society, वो भी होते हैं, ठीक है ना? And it really, you know, needs a lot of skill to address such a huge crowd. And the crowds can be very huge, you know, they can go in lakhs, right, out there, or million, you know, they could go to 10 lakhs even, right? Listening is as important as speaking, right? So when you want to do some audience engagement, you need to listen to the other people as well. Keep getting the feedback so that you know that you're going on the right track. And maybe if you're not going on the right track, then in between you need to change your track as well, right? Understand the time constraints. How much is too much, right? So people have a you know, have a certain attention span, right? Beyond that, they would not be willing to listen to you a lot, right? So you know, it depends on who you are as a personality. If you are like the prime minister of the country, you can go about addressing the crowd for half an hour to 1 hour, and the crowd would sit there to listen to you. But if you're a nobody, the crowd may just, you know, shout you out in that case, right? And you know, again, for example, if you're talking about the college students, I'm in a little hurry right now, as you can see, but I'm not hurrying. The point is, I want to keep it short and crisp in a sense, because what I know is that, you know, in this particular age group, in this particular generation, people have a very small, you know, this thing, you know, attention span, and that can cause a lot of problem as well. For example, on YouTube and all, if you listen to any YouTube podcast or something like that, after 10 minutes, you know, you kind of start losing your concentration as well. ठीक है ना? तो ये time constraint को भी समझना बहुत जरूरी है, ठीक है ना? Do not over-inform. Cramming too much material into too short an amount of time is again bad. Okay? So you need to cut out and focus on the most relevant part of it. Do not under-inform as well, overestimating how much material that you have, right? And sometimes what people do is they kind of pick up on a couple of points and they keep on elaborating on that and on, and then they keep on speaking on that, and they go on and go on and go on. That kind of causes, you know, a problem as well, right? So memorizing is one of the worst things you can do, right? Don't memorize. Just learn the important things and then go there and speak spontaneously. Okay? I mean, during the school days and all, we used to have declamation. We would kind of, you know, go and you know, memorize a particular speech of, let's say, 500 words or something, and we would go on the stage and speak. But that is something that's not going to work, right? Later on. Otherwise, if you don't learn how to speak spontaneously, you would end up being a Rahul Gandhi, you know, always reading from a script or something like that, or maybe a Mayawati. You would not be a very spontaneous speaker in that case. Okay? So that is something you need to take care of. Rehearse and then rehearse again. Your speech will be ingrained in you. So the more you rehearse, the more you practice, the better a speaker you are going to be. You're going to become. Structure. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them. You know, then tell them what you told them as well, right? So initially lay out the structure of the speech that you're going to give, what you're going to cover in this particular case, and then cover the speech, and at the end, you know, tell them what you have actually covered, you know, or summarize it as well. So the summary is something that the audience can take home. Make sure everything has a beginning, middle, and end. Ask yourself if you are meeting audience expectations. Knowing time also helps you pace yourself, right? So if you know the time and you are keeping track of the time as well, right, then that kind of helps you. For example, right now the time is about 1:40, right? I know you people are going to become more and more impatient, right? So ye cheez hai. Visual aids, they help you a lot, right? So they need to assist, not be the start of the show, but make sure that they're not the start of the show. So do not make the visual aid too jazzy. Keep it simple. So keep it simple. Silly is a very simple strategy for, you know, these kind of things. So what is the best type of display to help you prove your point? It depends, right, on the kind of audience that you're going to address. So right now, for such you know, audiences, I think PowerPoint presentation is more than enough, right? So what method of display is most effective to helping you achieve your goal, right? So right now I found a PPT to be the most effective way. Again, in certain cases, video or audio can also add to, you know, making the display more effective. Okay. Will your presentation support any kind of technology? So that's something that you should figure out, right? And once you take care of all of these things, then you are like well prepared. So as Mark Twain would say, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. Impromptu is you just start speaking once you are kind of given a topic, or once you decide on what topic to speak, right? So there are only two types of speakers in the world: the nervous and the liars, right? So if you're going to speak on something, you're going to be nervous, which is perfectly fine, or you're going to lie, right? So these are the only two kinds of things, that exist. So these are some fine words from Mark Twain, right? So some pre-performance tips, sorry. Common qualities in speakers: nervousness, which is okay, fine. Anxiety, a healthy amount is okay. Looking down back of a room, which is also fine. Staying stationary, moving too much. So this is something you can kind of decide whether you wish to look down, whether you wish to look back out of the room. That is again something that you can decide. And speaking at varying volumes, this again is a very important quality of a speaker. You need to know where you need to emphasize. You need to know where you should not be emphasizing, right? The dress code is very important. First impression matter. You are judged positively or negatively by your audience immediately, right? So make sure you wear a proper dress, right? And that again is very important, right? Dress should match the tone of speech as well. So if you are going to deliver something very mature, so wear something mature. But if it's going to be a very dinner time audience looking for some fun and laughter, and you're a comedian, then you can go to the stage wearing shorts and a t-shirt and some floaters. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter there, right? So your dress should match the tone of the speech. Dress in clothes that make you feel comfortable and confident. So from your point of view also, you have to wear clothes that make you comfortable and confident, right? If you don't know how to wear a sari, and for the first time you wear a sari and go on the stage, half the time you would be worried about your dress, right? So if that is the case, try and practice wearing saris for a very long time before you actually start wearing them and going on a stage, right? So these are some of the things that you need to take care of, right? And eye contact is very important. Two-way street, not a staring contest. So don't keep staring at one person. Keep moving, right? Your eyeballs here and there, and try and make as many eye contacts that you can. Keeps everyone invested and involved. You can in fact fake eye contacts. Fake eye contacts, yeah, you're looking at the faces of the audience, but you're not actually concentrating on the face of the audience. You keep moving your head here, there with certain gestures and all. So audience tends to believe that you're looking at them, but you're not actually looking at them. But if you make a, if you start kind of make a very strong gaze at somebody, you might actually, deviate from what you're trying to speak, and that can actually be a problem as well, right? Pay equal attention to everyone in the room. That again is very important. Unconsciously, we end up looking at only one person or the other, right? That's again very bad. Work in conjunction with the head movement as well. So your head movement again is plays a very important factor in this case. Key is finding the right speed for your comfort. Don't overspeed things. Don't be too slow, right? Do everything that is comfortable and is according to the things that you're actually speaking out there. Okay? It is body language is not an act. So please do not try to act. Try to be very natural on the stage. Use gestures that feel completely natural, right? Be mindful of your hands at all times. Sometimes people tend to overdo things with their hand. Don't do that, right? Because they kind of believe that hand movement is important, but you should not be overdoing it. That's again very important. Movement helps, but decide how much you will move well in advance, right? And the best way to prepare, record yourself in a similar environment, right? And you would know exactly whether your body language is right or wrong, right? Your vocal variety, voice analysis, loud, silent, animated, steady. So when do you need to use what, right? So language needs to be consistent throughout. If you're going to speak in English, speak in English. Don't kind of make it a dual battle. Okay? In certain cases, duality is also fine, right? But then if people know that you're going to give a speech in English, and if you end up using some other language, the crowd might not appreciate it properly, especially if that crowd doesn't know that particular language. I've seen many people, they suddenly start speaking in Bengali or or let's say Punjabi or Hindi for that matter, right? And there's a South Indian crowd there that hates it. Somebody who does not know Punjabi or Bengali, that person again would start hating the speaker. So this is something that usually happens as well. Use pauses, be comfortable with silence for a while, which is fine, right? Identify and be aware of crutch words. Crutch words is, like right now I said, so this is a crutch word. Some people have this na. You use of pause na, become comfortable with silence na. So, when you're using these kind of words, these are actually the crutch words, and try and minimize them as much as, possible, right? Rehearse, don't memorize. So practice, rehearse, don't try to memorize it, right? Sentence outline, phrase outline, keyword outline. So try and create all of these things, create a keyword outline of all the important points, or you may actually create a phrase outline, or you may create sentence outline as to know how the map of your speech and the flow of your speech, and then you can accordingly speak, right? You may not end up speaking verbatim every time, that is word to word every time, but yes, the map has to be consistent, right? But in between, there can be certain variations. There can be certain spontaneity, which is completely fine in that case, right? Less is more. So when you're kind of preparing this keyword to outline a map, just do not end up writing a lot. Less is more. If you bring it, you will use it, right? And don't bring these kind of things while you're speaking, otherwise you're going to use it. Make sure your speaker outline is different than your formal outline. So that again is, a very important thing, right? So speaker outline is different than your formal outline. Formal outline is when you're going to write the script. And when you create an outline for speaking, that is to help you to maintain the flow of the speech. That is very important, right? And then determine the right amount of time to rehearse, right? How much of rehearsal is something that you would require. That is something you need to work on. Final pre-performance steps: night before the speech, good night, sleep, and meals, they help. Finalize your routine, avoid too much caffeine, or you would end up not sleeping. Why? What's done is done. So visualize success. So ab tumne jitna preparation karna tha, you have done it. Now all you need to do is visualize success. And this kind of a funda, is for everything. Whether you're talking about college exams, competitive exams, or any other aspect about life. Okay, na? You may record your work, get to presentation space well in advance, okay, so that you know what you're going to deal with, right? If you want, you can visit the auditorium where you're going to speak as well, or the room where you're going to speak as well, so that you know the dynamics, of the physicality of the room, so that accordingly you can adjust yourself and you are not surprised by the unfamiliarity factor. Know your introduction, smooth sailing after that. So maybe if you want to memorize something, maybe you can just memorize 2 or 3 lines of the 2 or 3 opening lines, because once you deliver a proper opening lines for about 25 to 30 seconds, speaking after that is a breeze. It's not difficult, right? Breathing techniques help. So keep breathing properly, hydrate yourself properly, drink enough water before you speak. Don't drink too much of water, or you would end up wanting to go to the loo, which is very bad, right? You may keep a small bottle or something like that, and you can kind of hydrate yourself in between if you feel a certain need, right? Bring water, but be careful if you're right. And be careful in the sense, like when you're drinking water, don't end up spilling anything on your clothes and all. Otherwise you're going to kind of make a mess out of it. And if you make a mistake, don't be afraid to acknowledge it, right? So if you make a mistake, accept it, fine. So the audience in these cases is usually very forgiving. Remember, at the start what I had said, the audience wants to see you succeed. So they're going to forgive, some small peccadillo, some small mistakes, which is perfectly fine in that case, right? Post-performance tips: congratulate yourself for the job well done. Don't wait for others to congratulate. First, you should be the one to pat your back if you've done a good job, or you believe that you have done a good job. Get objective feedback, get feedback from the people, see where, the things that you can actually improve upon, the mistakes that you have done, right? Watch and listen to yourself 24 hours later, and if you have a recording, that's perfectly fine. You can actually listen to that. Make notes on how to improve in the future, right? Make notes on how to improve in the future as well.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for giving your precious time to us. Thank you so much to listening to you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
madam.
you, sir.
It's a pleasure taking.
Okay.